This episode of Untold Stories is sponsored by shopping.io. You'll hear more about them later on in this episode. All right. What is up, everyone? I am Charlie Shrem, and you are listening and watching Untold Stories, where twice a week, together, we get to dive deep with some of crypto's most influential leaders, CEOs and executives of some of the most important companies, developers of some of the largest decentralized applications, blockchains, and protocols, to understand how this community came to be, where we are right now in the larger scheme of things, and where the hell we're going from here. I feel like every single day is a new, crazy, amazing day in our industry. There's so much to talk about. Michael O'Rourke, thank you so much for coming on Untold Stories today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Charlie. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you are the founder and CEO. Do we use CEO in decentralized networks? But
There's a company that I'm a CEO of, but
Yeah.
really it's a bit limited at this point, to be
of
honest.
the Pocket Network, and it's really great because last week for the listeners we had Block Demon, and we understand where they fit into the larger ecosystem of the of the infrastructure. You know, that underbelly of APIs and payment rails and back and forth. So now we get to talk to the Pocket Network, which is exactly that, but fully decentralized and a lot bigger. The Pocket Network is a decentralized infrastructure for developers who want to build peer-to-peer applications. So the idea, from what I understand, you can connect any app to any blockchain through infrastructure that's actually decentralized now. So you're not making all these connections through a centralized, like, physical location. And we're doing the research, right, last week, and you get thousands of nodes, over 1 billion relays served, and you work with 12 networks right now. And the best part about it, before I let you say anything, is that you're an iOS dev and a Solidity dev, so you really know your way around. And you're the founder of the Tampa Bay Blockchain Developer Meetup. You're Tampa-based. I'm Tampa-based. How awesome is Florida?
Yeah, rough in Florida, man.
Yeah.
Tell people it's a blockchain capital of the world you haven't heard of yet.
It really is, because we don't need to talk about it. We just love life so much. Every time I talk about how amazing it is living here and someone wants to move, my wife gets mad at me. She's like, "Stop telling people to come down here."
Yeah, it's a secret that's becoming a secret no longer. It seems like at this point, but it really is amazing to live here, having lived
So
here most of my life. So
yeah, man, it really is. I love it. I love it. What do you do for fun?
yeah, I'm a big fan of sports. Big Tampa Bay sports fan. So go
Bucks.
Bolts, go Bucks,
Go
go
Bolts.
Rays.
That was
I'm an
awesome.
Orlando Magic fan. I'm a big music fan, so I go to a bunch of shows and concerts over in Ybor and other
Nice.
places
Do you like
around the
country?
U.S.
I just saw Garth Brooks last week.
I'm not that big of a country fan.
Yeah.
More on the kind of like chill melodic music, a lot of jazz. I
Yeah.
don't know if you know who like Pat Metheny is, but he's by far my favorite musician of
I'm
all
going to
time.
research him
Um,
after and take a listen.
incredible music, and just really prolific. And put out music since like the 60s, and it's just incredibly prolific.
I used to hate country growing up, and I used to be like, like play ABC, anything but country. And like but I never had like listened to any of it. I just grew up as one of these things that, like, we're born with these statements of fact. People like tell us, our parents, our family, and it's like, we hate them. We hate people because people tell us to, right? So I grew up, and here I am, like 20 years old. Oh, I hate country. And I realized that I've never actually like listened to a full country album. How ignorant of me. And now I love country.
Your tastes change. It's totally, country. I can enjoy it at the time, in the moment. It's not something that I
Yeah.
necessarily seek out, at least right now. It's an interesting point you make there, though, because I was just telling a friend, it's like, how much we try not to be like our parents when we're growing up, and how somehow subtly we end up slowly being like them in some form or fashion over time as we get older. But
It's
it's
true.
interesting.
So I think I've come to some sort of a similar epiphany over the weekend. I had a bunch of flights, and I was thinking, deep in thought, and I realized that our parents raise us a certain way, and they raise us, and while they're raising us, a lot of times they're dealing with some of their most immense pressures and stresses in life, and pain, suffering, happiness, just immense emotion, and they're putting that all into us. And then now, I'm just getting into my 30s now, 32. I've been going through, and these would be the times that I would have kids if that was something that I wanted to. But um, these would be the times that I would be putting those same emotion, and I kind of like over the years you start to have like a not like you forgive them for some of these things for what we grew up with our families, but more of like an understanding that what they were going through went into us, and then now that we're going through those same things, we have to consciously not put that into our kids.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good way to put it. It's like for me, it's trying to find appreciating the best of what they put into us, right? And
Yeah.
and trying to be the best version of yourself.
There's like
With of
you ever watch Pirates of the Caribbean?
course,
There was like I forget which one it was. It's like, you learn life lessons from these old Disney movies or whatever. It wasn't Disney, it may have been Radar. I don't know. But there was a scene there and he was like he had this whole ship of like misfits and thieves and everything. And someone like it was a prim and proper guy came out. He's like, how do you captain a ship with all of these, misfits and thieves and everything? And he said, well, I just take that guy, he may be, gets into bar fights every night, but he can climb to the top of the mast and look and see an enemy ship from miles away. It's like you look for the one specific thing in each person that's the positive, and you use that to make a better whole.
yeah, yeah.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
That's how amazing things are built. That's a great anecdote for really describing how amazing things get built in this world over throughout human history, in my opinion.
Yeah, right. What
Yeah.
did you do in Bitcoin and crypto before the Pocket Network? How did you kind of get your start?
Yeah. To go back a little bit, I got into Bitcoin in 2013. That's when I bought my first Bitcoin.
Wow, early.
I was a pretty passive, just supporter and holder. But the reason I really got into it, I was born in the Caribbean in Dominican Republic, and I've used Western Union many times as a result of sending money to my family, cousins, etc. There's a couple of things that kind of primed me for Bitcoin when I discovered it in 2013. Um, I was also, I paid a lot of attention. I was 18 during the financial crisis. Paid a lot of attention to that, Occupy Wall Street, and just learned a lot about our financial system at that time. And a couple of years before I found out about Bitcoin, I worked at a credit union here in Tampa, two credit unions actually.
Which ones?
Uh,
I'm a member of one of them.
Tampa Bay
Nice.
Federal, and Suncoast Credit Union.
Oh, I used to be
Uh,
with Suncoast Credit Union. That's so cool.
yeah, I sold loans there. I sold
Oh, nice.
credit cards, cars, the whole thing.
I like
And
credit
that was a
unions. My friend started one many years ago, but he couldn't keep it afloat. The Internet Credit Union by archive.org. Remember archive.org, the Wayback Machine? They
yeah,
started a credit union from like
I didn't know that.
2012 to I know,
Really?
from 2012 to 2014 it existed. I know exactly because I remember like being like I was one of the members that when they closed, I had to like get my funds dispersed. But I was one of the first accounts to open. It was only like 200 total accounts ever, and it was a New Jersey based local credit union. But it was an
Oh, wow.
experiment. But I guess the credit union laws don't allow you to create like an internet credit union, so it's hard to
Oh,
do.
I had no idea. That's super interesting. I still use Internet Archive pretty
Yeah,
regularly.
same.
There's
Rooster
this video
Kale is
game.
one of the
I was
saviors of the internet.
yeah, he really is. Yeah, there's this video game I've been trying to find, and I haven't been able to find it, and it's just one of those things. Um, but yeah, worked at a couple credit unions, saw thousands of credit reports, and kind of got I don't think radicalized is the right word, but was open to kind of different things by that time. And I remember reading a Wired article about the Silk Road in 2013, led me down the subreddit, Bitcoin subreddit, and really from there, read the white paper and just became absolutely obsessed. At the time, like I said, I think at the time I was working at a golf course and at the USF golf course in Tampa, and every paycheck I just started putting in $100, $200, buying Bitcoin, and just started kind of accumulating, and started doing some talks, in the Dominican Republic at one of the universities there. Did one here locally in Tampa, particularly when Ethereum came out, and well, not Ethereum came out, but a couple of years later when
Sure.
we started working with Ethereum and stuff like that. But I bought into the vision back in 2013. I remember writing a blog post on my Medium. I'm sure it's still there. Like part one of how Bitcoin's going to change the world. Back, and I think it's posted probably in like early 2014 or late 2013 or something like that. But it's just that was my first entrance. I wasn't a developer at the time.
Oh,
So
really?
really, no, no, I studied international studies in college. I wanted to be a diplomat before I graduated.
Well,
Um,
you became one in a way, and you became a better
yeah,
better diplomat.
one
Thank
could
you.
say one could say I'm a protocol politician.
Yeah, I love that. Becoming a
Yeah, I'm
protocol politician is the name of this show now.
yeah, I'm bilingual, so I was like, let me go chill in in a consulate somewhere in South America. Realized didn't want to work for the government, just deal with the bureaucracy, and really I learned to code about 6 months before I graduated from college. I had it taken me a while to graduate. I'd failed out, smoked too much weed, played too much World of Warcraft, and
We had the
took me a
same
while.
college career.
Yeah, yeah, man. Burning Crusade was my jam. And eventually, got things figured out before I graduated. Learned to code. Was an iOS engineer, developer for about 3 years, and that's really when I discovered Ethereum a couple of years after that, and writing smart contracts and that kind of thing. I actually remember going to the Bitcoin conference in Miami in 2014 and
Expecting me to be there?
watching. I remember watching Vitalik announce Ethereum and being like, "This is vaporware. I don't think this is going anywhere." And then two
That
years later, writing smart contracts, just full out on, believe what he built, but or what the Ethereum community has built. But that's kind of been my journey. Going from basically a history degree to kind of getting
yeah.
more and more technical. Dealing with infrastructure now and so on and so forth. But it's been an incredible journey so far for me.
It's good that we're both like from 2014 to now, here we are living in the Tampa area, happy. Where you were sitting there in that room thinking Ethereum is vaporware, and where your world went from then to now. At that same moment, you know, right after Vitalik announced that, Mo Levine, the creator of the
Yep,
conference, was getting on stage saying, "Yeah, Charlie's supposed to be here, but no one knows where he is. He's not answering his phone." And I was sitting in a jail cell. And so it's just insane the parallels like years later. And here we are at a podcast talking about Bitcoin and crypto. So it's like this being a protocol politician, like these protocols outlive us. It's an
yep.
insane thing to think about. I never thought about software in that respect, where the software will outlive the humans that write it.
That's the goal, right? It's to build something with. I think we're all in our own way trying to
Yeah.
rebuild the foundation of society in one way or another. I think in a better way, in a way that's taking the learnings and the best from the previous, from the shoulders of giants that we are sitting on today, right? And hopefully with something more sustainable and just generally better for everyone,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Yeah,
A lot of people still think that it's hard to learn how to code, especially on a level where you can get paid for it, build your own applications, build your own software, be the CEO of a decentralized, like be involved in a whole decentralized network here. Right now, someone's, huge techie, they're always, they know their way around a computer and software problem solving, but they know nothing about any coding. What would be the first step in your opinion? First
yeah.
language.
Language. I outside of language, I would actually pick something that gets you passionate. That's probably the most important thing.
What do you mean?
Because I tried to code 5 6 times before I actually stuck with it. Right, like I tried JavaScript, I had tried Go, I had tried C++, I tried Objective C, I tried Java, I tried a ton of different coding languages, and none of them ended up sticking. Um, and it wasn't until Apple released the programming language Swift that it finally stuck for me. And that was back in 2014, 2015 timeframe. And the thing about Swift and the thing about mobile development, at least for me, I've always had, an entrepreneur mind. I've always wanted to come up with things and just never really, very little stuck until really pocket, to be honest. But at the same time, for me to be able to build something, even if it was a very simple UI, and be able to show my friends like, "Hey, dude, look what I built," and just kind of that feedback loop for me is what kept me going. So I think everyone has a different feedback loop for what sticks for them, a different vision of what they want to build. But really, to really dig in and to really learn something, you have to want to go past kind of the surface level. And for the first time, Swift, it's actually, I compare it like kind of like what Ethereum did for kind of blockchain development, I want to
Sure.
say, or software development. I think Swift did the same for mobile development in many ways, where they took something that was immensely complicated. At the very beginning, they make it so simple where it's drag and drop. So it's like a good board game. It's like easy to learn but complex to master,
Oh,
right?
I love that, like
And
chess or whatever, or Go.
yeah, it's like easy to learn the rules, but then mastering something that good, you start getting deeper, and you're like, holy shit, I really don't know anything about this, but you kind of want to learn more and figure it out and kind of thing. And having those feedback loops and really like it's more
Yes.
persistence than anything, man.
Some
It really
authors,
is.
it's like how authors write a book. Some authors would want to write a book like Swift, where they're writing a chapter and then they're getting feedback and they're continuing to go. Where some authors don't want anyone to look at it until they're like edited, done, proofread a million times. That's like someone writing in a language that's more complex, where they don't want anyone to look at it, compiling on their own, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And for me,
Oh,
that was the process for me. I managed to find something that I was able to stick with. The first time I made
I
an
love that.
HTTP request, my mind was just absolutely blown. I was like, wow, this is how the internet works. It's just, it was a, it, you know, I I'm getting tingles right now on my skin right now. It's just one of these things where it's just like, when you see how it works and, you go through the whole kind of end to end process and you're like, wow, it's just one of these mind blowing things. And honestly, it's similar to, learning about Bitcoin and crypto generally it's a similar feeling, to be honest.
So you started to learn how it all works. You're making your first HTTP requests. You're understanding how the internet works, on a like a layer one underbelly infrastructure level. You're finally understanding you're interacting with this all the time. And then you're getting into Bitcoin too and crypto. What did you see was missing that really forged you to say, I need to make this my full time and launch Pocket?
Yeah, yeah, we were. This was late 2016. So my co-founders and I, were working on Main Street in Sarasota. Believe it or not,
Oh
uh,
yeah,
lived lived down there for about a year and a half. We started writing some smart contracts for Ethereum, and once it's very similar to making my first HTTP request, deploying a smart contract to Ethereum, it's a similarly kind of mind blowing thing. And we used an infrastructure service that exists today. It's called Infura.
sure.
And as kind of 2017 rolled along, we really saw the importance of Infura for the Ethereum ecosystem and the reliance that Ethereum had on it. And it was always, in our view, and this is kind of a shift from my mindset from 2014, where I thought Bitcoin was going to be everything.
Sure.
One of our views was, and still is today, that we think we're going to live in a world with thousands of blockchains, and all of them need this kind of infrastructure service. So we started thinking about what a decentralized protocol could look like that can, putting it simply, provide full nodes for any blockchain, right? And that's really what Pocket does. Is it just provides full node access in a decentralized way, in a trustless way, and with really strong guarantees on your data and so on and so forth. Full node access for any blockchain. And it took, you know, 3 years of iteration and thinking and design until we launched it almost a year ago to this day. But for context, we tried everything we could to not build our own blockchain. In
Sure.
fact, if you go to GitHub, you'll see the first smart contracts that I deployed back in 2017 for Pocket. But that was really the kind of genesis of the idea, was using this infrastructure provider, really seeing how important it is, separate from the kind of decentralized network itself, and how that just seemed like, one, a vector of risk, and two, something that
Yeah.
we saw an opportunity to actually not just be decentralized for decentralized sake, but actually have a measurable improvement in cost, for example.
And speed.
Then yeah, and
Wow.
that's where it started, man.
Hey guys, I'm Charlie Shrem here in Las Vegas to teach some NFL players about Bitcoin. But I wanted to congratulate our sponsor Kava, because Circle chose the Kava platform as one of their newest blockchains and protocols they're going to be launching USDC on. Traditionally, USDC has only been on Ethereum and one or two other chains like Tron. But now there's a bunch of other blockchains. The Kava platform is one of them, and you can access all of those super cool DeFi high yield opportunities that are on the Kava platform now with USDC, which we know and love. So check them out at untoldstories.link/Kava. And congratulations, guys. Having Circle choose y'all as the top blockchain for USDC to be launched on is a big freaking deal. I'm going to go teach some football players about Bitcoin. Here's Courtney. I'm out. The most important part of our Bitcoin and crypto industry is being able to not only earn money in crypto, but also be able to spend it, earn rewards in crypto, and keep that revolution going, keep the cycle going of all of us together. Well, my partners at shopping.io are offering just that. Multi-tiered discounts up to 10% where you can spend your crypto anywhere that you're already buying everything already, Amazon, Walmart, eBay, but use your crypto to spend it, earn back cash back, earn back rewards. And not only that, but if you go to untoldstories.link/shopping.io, you get an additional, on top of every other discount, an additional 2%. So you can go there now and shop and get 12% off of everything you're already buying anyways. Fantastic, fantastic company. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you check them out at untoldstories.link/shopping.io. So you have dozens of different blockchains and protocols that exist here. But in order for us to get mass adoption and to actually interact with all of these protocols and blockchains, we need that like software infrastructure, because most apps and most companies don't want to be running their own nodes. They don't want to be, and I'm going to ask you like what type of interactions and why I would need to be interacting with a node and why the nodes are important in a second. But so that's, so traditionally you'd have all these centralized companies that say, hey, pay us and we'll help you interact with these blockchains in real time if you're a large crypto bank or whatever. But the natural evolution of things should be to have those same companies in a decentralized way. But under that ethos, you wanted to have your own blockchain, but on the simple ethos of you have to write the software optimized for you, you have to write your own blockchains optimized for what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and you hit the hammer right there on the nail with running your own infrastructure. I always think back to a podcast I listened to where Brian Armstrong from Coinbase talks about the very, very beginning of Coinbase and how the main switch that they made was instead of having a user run their own node, they ran their own Bitcoin nodes for their initial wallet. And that's kind of what helped them initially take off. So we have these truly decentralized permissionless networks, but we have kind of a traditional Web 2 model operating on top of them, right? Whether it's storage or access or DNS or privacy, whatever it is. We have at the very, very base layer, we have truly permissionless decentralized networks. But what's happening is that we're kind of seeing the stack kind of get, we have traditional models over the other parts of the stack. And what happens is, these are open source networks. These aren't, proprietary databases like a Facebook or an Instagram or whatever it is. And as a result, we all tend to gravitate towards a couple providers that run all the nodes for us. And that I think, outside
we use what works.
And of course that's what we know. And really the thing behind Pocket is putting this new paradigm, using real true crypto native economics and a truly new paradigm for people to access infrastructure. Something we're really excited about.
How many blockchains are we talking about or protocols?
Today we support 12 that are paid. There's another 3 to 6 that we support that aren't yet paid within the protocol. But we're effectively pretty rapidly adding new chains where we can. So to be fair, we're coordinating a network of thousands of nodes. So that can be difficult sometimes, but
of course,
nonetheless, we're really moving in that direction where it's kind of one interface to access any chain in a truly decentralized fashion.
What type of interactions, going back to the other question, like what type of things are people doing?
Yeah, 99% of them are reads. So people refreshing their wallet balances, looking for prices, interacting with smart contracts, this sort of thing. 1% are transactions or writes, right? So sending Bitcoin, interacting with a smart contract. It's really mostly reads. And that's kind of the challenge at scale, is because these nodes, when you have someone using Uniswap, for example, or some popular wallet, it's really not about the throughput of the Bitcoin network with writes. It's about the scalability of the full nodes that are providing the data for people to be able for people to even be able to see their balances. That's kind of where the bottleneck is today, that we are effectively breaking at this point.
Are all these dozen blockchains so far, are they all alike in how you have to interact with them and how you have to write the software to interact with them? Or are any of them like quirky and do things in a weird way that you're just like, oh, what a hassle?
Um, they
You
all
don't have
have
to
their
call them out
quirks.
specifically if you don't want to. You can.
Well, they all have their quirks. Some store data in a different way. Thankfully, they all have their kind of SDKs that make it a little bit easier. It's more with like the syncing of these chains and the way that that's really the biggest challenge that we've seen is depending on how these networks are designed, they're hard to stay in sync with the rest of the network. I'll give you an example, like BSC is a really popular one today, and
Sure.
it's just incredibly difficult to keep in sync.
Why?
Um, Due to the state, the amount of transactions going to the network and the amount of state that's being generated, the amount of data that's being generated is massive. What happens is the network ends up siloing itself, makes it, the Bitcoin network is really resilient because you can always find peer in this respect. And it's not so easy with a network like BSC as a result, probably because there aren't as many people running
Yeah, it
nodes.
takes time to build out the node network there.
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
How many
And that's
nodes
where
are enough, do you think, for a blockchain like to be distributed? How many nodes do you think would be?
there's two vectors there, right? It's how many nodes and how many individuals, right? I think is those are two really
Sure.
different metrics. There's no real hard evidence, right? It depends on how you want to go, right? Like what's enough to, um, you know,
Yeah.
avoid a state level attack, right? I would say off the top of my head, 10,000, 20,000
Yeah.
nodes with maybe a 10 to 1 difference in individuals, for example. So if you have 10,000 nodes, 1,000 individuals running those nodes, but really there's no, data behind that. That's just my own,
Yeah.
anecdotal kind
Which
of,
networks
back
have
of
that?
Bitcoin. And I venture to guess that Bitcoin is much better ratio than 10 to 1. Ethereum as well.
Yep.
Um, you know,
Has
I don't
Ethereum
know.
gotten better at syncing? Because that still was an issue over the years.
Yeah, yeah. Lately we haven't had any issues. It's more the state size of Ethereum is growing massively. There's been a recent massive improvement. There's a node that dropped that was recently, I think it was like 7 terabytes of data, down to 1.2 terabytes of data for a
How?
full archival. You know what? They did some magic there. It's called Aragon, Eragon. It's incredible. It's really incredible what they did, but they managed to compress all that information within 1.2 terabytes without any degradation in speed or anything like that, which
And
is
you
pretty
can
impressive.
call on that still in the same without any latency or anything like that.
Yeah, nothing changes. Nothing changes,
You know,
which is
it
pretty
it
impressive.
it it goes to show that if your blockchain is big enough with enough money locked in, if it's grown with enough people using it, all of the technical problems could be solved. But at the same time, you can make the same case that it's harder to solve those problems because then making changes is difficult.
Yeah, yeah. As you get, as more value gets locked, it does definitely get harder to make changes, right? I think we've seen that both with Bitcoin and Ethereum, just generally. So it's kind of a race before it ossifies in some respect, right? So being
Oh
small,
yeah. Yeah, you're
you know,
right.
being small still has its advantages, but as more money comes in, as more interested parties come in, as more stakeholders come in, you know, um, these things are truly decentralized networks, right? So you have different perspectives from different people that give different weight to arguments and this kind of thing, right?
I wanted to ask you, you just made me think of a great question. So 2 weeks ago, we lost like 20% of the Bitcoin hash rate, it was some number very quickly. We did a
Yeah,
bunch of episodes on it. We actually the episode I'm releasing tomorrow is with someone who's very close with the Chinese government, talking about things like that, what actually happened there. Tune into that. But how did the Bitcoin node count? Like, was there a relationship between the drop in the hash rate and the drop in the node count? Because it used to be that running nodes and mining Bitcoin were the same, but now they've separated.
yeah. No, I'd be willing to bet that the node count was barely affected by the
Wow.
drop in the hash rate. One massive miner really only needs a couple nodes. Really, what they need is the ASICs and passing the data over through there. So they're pretty disconnected, and they serve different functions at this point, right? For me, full nodes act as a counterbalance to the miners in any given network or the validators if you're proof of stake. So to help avoid any kind of hostile taking over or partitioning or anything like that of a network, you need separate full nodes to be able to do that. But no, I haven't looked at the numbers since then, but I'd be willing to bet that they were barely affected.
What's the how is how is the Bitcoin node structure set up in a way that's so radically different than how like the Ethereum virtual machine and like all of these other new type of blockchains set up their node structures?
How is it different? Well, it's simpler for one thing,
Yeah.
massively simpler. It's I wouldn't say it's very different. They use peer-to-peer networks.
Is it just that the functionality of Bitcoin, because it hasn't changed in terms of like what's being upgraded and how things work, that the node structure can remain like relatively stable?
Yeah, yeah. I think speed of releases and this kind of thing absolutely helps make things more stable. I would argue that Ethereum has been pretty stable for the most part. Not
That's
to
good
say
to
that there
hear.
hasn't been any issues with releases in the past or anything like that, but I think relatively speaking, those two are the most stable networks by far in existence today. I would say they're not different in how they operate. What's really different is the kind of data that they store and the functionality that they allow users to access. It's really how they're
Ah,
different.
good point.
But there's challenges, right, with Ethereum because like I mentioned before, it was 7 terabytes, right? That's what really affects kind of node counts and the speed at which that data gets passed around a peer-to-peer network. Because if you have like with BSC, where let's say for just to give a number, you're processing, 1 terabyte of data within an hour. You have to pass all that information around potentially thousands of nodes. And if they aren't equipped to handle all that information, that ends up, being problematic, getting people out of sync and so on and so forth. I think both, Ethereum and Bitcoin have struck a pretty good balance on that front. I think Ethereum has suffered more in terms of individuals running nodes due to the cost of it and the growth of the state itself. But I think at its core, they work almost exactly the same way. You have a computer, get some information, and wants to pass it to gossip it over to the rest of the network. And at its core, that's really the same. They work in the same way.
You know, over the last 7, 8 years for you and me in this industry, if I look at the projects that I've invested in and have done well, it's the look at like everything as a path to decentralization. You look at Bitcoin as the leader of that path. Everything is on, most cryptocurrencies or blockchain protocols or networks are hopefully on that path to decentralization, even if they're not as fully decentralized, or maybe they are more prone to an attack right now. At the end of the day, they're all like experiments. One of the best metrics to look at when you're getting involved in a project is like, are they actually decentralized? Are they actually trying to be decentralized and distributed? You can look at node count, individual count as one metric. What other metrics can we look at?
Yeah, I think governance is an important metric. Um, the way I think about it is like what are those things called when you're bowling that you put up
Oh, the
the
lanes, yeah.
guardrails?
The guardrails,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like
The bumpers,
are
bumpers.
the bumpers? Thank you, thank you. It's
I still
like are
bowl with bumpers.
yeah, yeah. It's like, are the bumpers there to for decentralized, for encouraging decentralization from the beginning, right? Is kind of how
Ah,
I think about it. And some protocols have it, some don't. But the way that I think about it is, what are the fundamentals? What are the barriers of entry, right? Whether that's cost, whether that's voting governance, right? That sort of thing. Not just nodes as well, right? Like how accessible. If I had two vectors, it'd be how is it governed and how accessible is it, right? Would be the two major vectors, and I think that will help lead to, for example, many unique nodes in a network or many unique holders, right? So
I
so
like
one
that.
popular metric by Bitcoin, right, is how many new addresses, how many new holders are coming into the system, right? I think that's a really important metric as well, right? Um, but really what leads to that, in my opinion, are governance and accessibility. right? Accessibility through cost, right? Back in the day, I've got a set of seven
I'm so happy I
740s.
never looked at any of these metrics on Bitcoin until like recently, because if I was worried about all these metrics in 2011, I was worried about writing. We were writing in my shitty Python, writing the software just so BitInstant can send Bitcoin to an external wallet address. That software to interact with the Bitcoin blockchain didn't exist.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that makes it more decentralized, right?
Yeah.
Quite literally, it really does. Yeah, like I used to be, I could run some miners, right, on Ethereum, and earn a bit of ETH, right, for something reasonable, right, a couple $1,000 and that kind of thing. So the question is, how are protocols allowing people to participate today in the future, right? Are they controlling your money through delegation? I think when I talk about those guardrails, right? Things like delegation for me
Yeah.
is an important kind of uh, guardrail in the sense of it could lead to more centralization, although none of this has been proved out as an example. So that's kind of how I think about it. And I think over time, as these things get utility, as people genuinely use them, even speculation helps with this, of course. But over the long run, you'll see tokens get recycled, get in more hands of people, whether
Sure.
through emissions or through existing holders or however it might be. And that's kind of the process, right? But there is a hard number of you know nodes and
Yeah.
who's actually validating and who's actually creating the state, right? Which at its core, talking about the guardrails, right, or the bumpers, that's also for me one of those things that will affect that over the long run as well.
And it's a lot of times the transfer going from centralization to decentralization can be a little bit tricky and messy. I've been an investor in projects that launched with like the understanding that a mainnet will launch with a federation and multiple validators and distributors. But it's if anyone's done this before, if you're involved in a company that does that switch, like be in the Telegram groups because it's just fucking chaos. It's great. It's like, all right, we're going decentralized now. Well, you have to go from a network of like one validator to potential. Like I just did it with Casper, and they launched 120 validators in one day. So how do you do that? That process is and they did it without any major hiccups. I was very impressed. But another project, a little bit of hiccups. So it's just kind of crazy to watch, and it's fun. People ask me like, what I do for fun. Yeah, I fucking watch blockchain states get launched.
Yeah, it's a harder thing to be a centralized company, I think, and then opt to switch to something decentralized, because I think fundamentally you have to work in a
Yeah,
decentralized way. And I think culturally, as a company, it's hard to do if you haven't been doing that from the beginning. I think that people have done it, and people have done it successfully. I think Casper actually is a good example of that. But it's hard. It's hard in
yeah.
terms of when your company culture is used to working one way and moving towards a truly open and collaborative way of doing things, is a difficult thing to do.
On that on that note, you could have stopped Pocket Network there. You could have had your company, you could have had your team build out the software, be like a decentralized version of a centralized company that does the same thing. But like you were saying, you were alluding to earlier, you launched your own blockchain, to allow all of the interactions between everything. It has a token, and the token incentivizes, from what I understand, other developers to come into the ecosystem and continue to build out these decentralized applications.
Yeah, I would say that the token incentivizes full nodes, more so than developers. That's the biggest challenge for us today is the developer side of things, and really proving that out and showing what the service is capable of. We found that with very few requests going through the network, we've incentivized thousands of nodes, which is pretty mind blowing.
Wow. Oh
And
my
we're
God.
really, yeah,
So
it's
what do you
pretty.
mean? What can someone do right now to earn the token? Set up full nodes?
Yeah, well, to participate, you buy Pocket and run a full node, and that's it. You run a full node like a Pocket node, and then you can run a Bitcoin node, an Ethereum node, a Rinkeby node, a Polygon node, XDAI
In the
node,
Pocket node?
separate. So Pocket node is a very thin
Yeah.
layer. You can think of it, the way we describe it is like a reverse proxy. So it's a very thin middleware, basically, that just relays my balance request on the Bitcoin network to the Bitcoin node, and then the Bitcoin node that you're running responds back and sends it back to the user who requested that information. So you can run one Pocket node to many blockchain nodes within the network and
So
earn
I
for
can
each
run my
single one of
own
them.
decentralized infrastructure here and get paid out by the whole network for running it and allowing other people to connect and all the peers. So you're incentivizing full nodes, not just on your blockchain, but on all of the
Yes,
blockchains that wow, that's
all the
brilliant.
blockchains,
And that's
all the
what your
blockchains.
software allows for, is just to like verify at the same time that you're actually running them and allowing the connections and everything.
Yes,
Whoa,
and
I
that you're
didn't know.
providing data
Wow.
that's true and correct, right? Because that's a challenge of a decentralized network, right? Is how can you prove that someone's not lying, right? That's why we use centralized services, because I trust Infura to not lie to me about the data that they're giving me, or Alchemy API, or QuickNode, right? I trust them because these are reputable centralized companies, and
Whoa.
rightfully so. But if you have a network where anyone can buy Pocket and participate, well, then what happens if they lie, right? So we have to put in kind of these things to make sure that they're,
That's another metric that you have to look for. How do you disincentivize like lying, or how do you incentivize the honesty? That's what
yeah,
Satoshi did. I feel like, kind of bring it
yeah,
all back together. He's like, hey,
yeah,
greed exists,
yeah,
integrity is important. Let's tie the two together.
yeah, exactly, exactly,
Freaking
exactly
brilliant.
right, exactly.
Michael, thank
Yeah,
you so much for coming on Untold Stories today. This was awesome. Thank you. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties earlier. Thank you for waiting. This was a brilliant show.
yeah. No, thanks for the time. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
How can my listeners get in touch with you? How can they get in touch with the company? Those who are developers, those who are not.
Yeah, I'm most active on Twitter. It's my last name, O'Rourke, O_ROURKE. Our Pocket Twitter, just send me a DM.
Awesome.
Whenever you like. And our Pocket Twitter, POKT network. Check out our website, pokt.network, if you want to learn
I want to come to the
something.
next Tampa developer meetup too.
Yeah,
So let's set
yeah,
that
for
up.
sure.
Let's
Yeah,
set that up. That would be a lot of fun. And can
yeah,
blockchains get in touch with you too, and other
absolutely,
protocols, so they can
absolutely.
part? Wow, you incentivize
Full nodes.
decentralization, incentivizing decentralization, and becoming a protocol politician with Michael
Yeah,
O'Rourke. That's literally the title of this episode today.
I love
Thank
it.
you, my friend. I'll talk to you later. Cheers.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Bye.